Jen Adams, and I am here to talk with you today about 3 ways to use boom cards in your classroom. Now, let's start off with me introducing myself a bit, sharing a little bit of my background, and telling you more about my experience with using boom cards, and we'll get right into it. So, my name is Jen Adams. I am an elementary and early childhood teacher and also certified to teach special education. I taught 4 years in elementary school in 1st grade and in pre-kindergarten. I got my master's in special education after seeing the massive need for special education support in our regular education classrooms and special education classrooms. And I taught 1 year as an alternative education teacher working with disruptive youth in grades 6 through 12. My most recent brick and mortar position is teaching 7 years in a self-contained autistic support 7th and 8th grade classroom in a middle school. And most recently, in my current position for this school year, is an autistic support public cyber charter school teacher, meaning I'm teaching fully virtual and remote in grades 1st through 9th grade. I am currently getting ready to start my last semester of my principal's certification program, so I will be a graduate of a principal's program very soon, and I'm also known around the web just a little bit as a Teachers Pay Teachers author and blogger, and you can find me on social media as well. We'll get into that later. So today I want to talk about how we are potentially getting into a point in education where for many of us, we were used to being outside of our classrooms for a bit of time. And now a lot of us are going to be getting back in there. And during that time of being outside of the classroom, we really had to rely on technology in order for us to deliver our instruction. And I think that just because we used it then doesn't mean we shouldn't be using it as we're going back into the classroom now. So I loved this quote here. It says, "Simply adding technology to K-12 environments does not improve learning. What matters is how it's used to develop the knowledge and skills." So just because you put a computer in front of a student does not mean that they are going to learn. But the way we develop those knowledge and skills and then apply it with that technology is how you make the magic happen. I also really love this quote. "Teachers need to integrate technology seamlessly into the curriculum instead of viewing it as an add-on, an afterthought, or an event." So what my plan is today is to convince you that technology is not an add-on. It is something that you can just seamlessly integrate into everything that you're doing, and I'm going to show you how to use boom cards to do just that. So let's start off with the basics, just in case you don't know. What are boom cards? Well, boom cards are self-grading exercises. They're also called decks of cards that are gamified for students and provide you with data. You can create them or purchase them from the site. So there's a couple cool things about boom cards here that you can see. So first off, they're interactive. The game features keep students engaged and wanting more. They are fun. Then the nice thing for us teachers is they are self-grading, which is going to save you lots and lots of time. And they're also paperless. So this is something you're going to want to use on a device or a computer, hence using that technology, which is really going to cut down on the amount of photocopying, laminating, and cutting that maybe you're already doing in your classroom. So when we get down to the nitty-gritty of what do you actually need to get Boom working in your classroom? Well, first off, you're going to need a free or paid Boom account. I'm going to share more about those paid accounts here soon. But you're also going to need some technology, of course. So some of the ways you can do that is through the use of using Boom cards on a desktop or laptop computer. You can also use them on a tablet or iPad. You can use them with a smartboard or a projector that's connected to a computer. And lastly, you're going to need some kind of browser with an internet connection. Typically, a newer browser version is going to work best for you, but you have to have an internet connection for boom cards to work. So I said something about having a Boom account. So you can absolutely, as you can see here by this chart here, you can absolutely get a Boom card account for free. However, you can also get a paid account, which honestly, it's not that expensive, and you can get some extra features that are going to do some different things for you. This is going to allow you to collect data on the progress your students are making, the content that they're actually mastering and what kind of activity they're doing on the account. You can also easily assign students multiple decks to work on. You can create a classroom of your own, assign student accounts, and make sure they're getting the work that they really need to be working on. And along with that, they get student logins and passwords, and all of that information they can access from any device as long as it has access to the internet or has the Boom app on it. So let's learn a little bit more, because if you're still not quite sure what Boom cards are, I've got a little demo video here that we're going to watch.
At Boom Learning, you can create digital task cards called Boom cards. With Boom cards, students are shown one question at a time and they get instant feedback on their answers. Let me show you some examples. When students click on the correct answer, it moves them forward to the next card in the deck. You've got lots of options when you create questions for students. One option is to make a multiple choice question. If students click on the wrong answer, it will mark it as incorrect and let them try again until they get the correct answer. Once they get it correct, it moves them forward. You can also create fill-in-the-blank questions if you want students to type in a word or a number as their answer. And the same rule applies. If they type in the wrong answer, it marks it as incorrect and gives them another opportunity to try again. Once they get it right, they move forward. You can also use text or images as part of your question. Here I want students to click on all of the squares, and there are 2. If they only click on one, it will let them know that they haven't found all the correct answers and let them try again. So you can also set it up to have more than one correct answer. Here's an example where they have to click on a word to get the question right. Here the verb is ate, and once they click on that, it moves them forward. One of my favorite features of Boom Learning is you can create drag and drop options. So you can set it up so either images or text are movable and students can drag them into the correct area to answer the question.
So that video just gives you an inside look at some of the many features that can be on Boom cards. Now again, if you remember, I said you can make Boom cards yourself, or you can also purchase Boom cards via their platform. You can also find them on Teachers Pay Teachers, and so it is really up to you to make them what you need for your students. So what are the benefits of using Boom? Well, Boom is great for a lot of things, but most importantly, differentiating your instruction. So you can give different students different decks, or you can give them all the same ones. And we're going to talk about how you can make that work here later. You can give students immediate and automatic feedback. So that video showed those clear. You had the auditory that was giving them that signal. You also had visual supports that was giving them the immediate and automatic feedback to help them understand if they're getting the concepts right. And you can get students excited about learning with different badges and fun rewards. There's a point system that Boom uses. I haven't dove into that a ton. However, I will say it can get students excited about their learning because they can reach different rewards throughout their actions and the amount of activity they do on the site. Holding students accountable for completing independent work. So this is another way, like I said, you can check on the activity level that the student is doing. So how many times are they logging in? When are they logging in? Where are they logging in? And you can then hold them accountable for completing the things that you assign for them. Now, I did want to show you here at the bottom of the screen, it does say, show me the data, because, well, I'm a special education teacher at heart, and we are all about data. But one of the nice things you can see here is this is an example of a potential student report of 2 different decks. So you can see here then the names of the decks are there. It also tells you how many times the student has played the deck, if they've reached mastery in it, how long they have spent completing the deck, and then what types of scores they had, their average score, their best score, and the most recent score. So this is all valuable information that teachers can use by having students use Boom cards in the classroom and get a lot of great information about what your students are able to do and maybe what they need more help and practice on. So let's talk about 3 ways that you can make this work in your classroom. So how do we get these amazing Boom cards in there? Well, the first idea I have for you is using it in a whole group setting. So you can put your Boom cards up on a smartboard. You can project them from your computer if you just have a projector in your room. But either way, you can put them up for your whole class to learn a concept together. So if you're studying something in class that everybody needs to work on, put the boom cards up on the board and you as the teacher can use them, or you can come up with some other creative ways. We'll get into more soon. Then stations or centers. Any classroom that runs with stations or centers finds that students are able to work on lots of different skills because they're able to rotate around the room. Why not have a station in your classroom that is a boom station? And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about assessments and how you can take boom cards and use all that amazing data I just showed you and create assessments that you can then have your students complete. So let's dive in a little bit more to those three concepts that I just shared. Like I said, whole group. So using that smartboard or projector, you can use it for your guided practice. So when you're doing a whole group lesson on a concept, students can be sitting as you see in the picture here. Some of them can be up and interacting with the board, or you could be doing it too just as the teacher. I love the idea of the teacher being up there for that beginning practice, a few of the questions where you stand up there and your students maybe give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Maybe they have whiteboards and they write their own answers up and hold them up for the teacher to see, and then collectively you can show the students which answer is correct. You get that auditory feedback, you also get the visual feedback, and then students know if they got the answer right or not. The other thing you can do is you can play a game where the student gets to pretend to be the teacher. Invite one of the students up in front of their peers and let them lead the group using the boom cards. I also love the idea of taking your class and making teams and having multiple students come up to the board competing against one another, completing the boom cards. And I also wanted to add that in a whole group setting, sometimes you just have a few minutes that you need to finish something up, or you just have to get a few minutes of something to do until it's time for lunch. And I think boom cards are a great filler for that. So you could just have a bunch of cards set aside that you know are good filler activities that can help fill in those gaps when you're in between lessons. So I wanted to show you a couple examples of some boom cards that I would use in a whole group setting. So this first one is one that I've created that I use in my own classroom for morning meeting. Now morning meeting, for a lot of people, can also call it circle time, morning time. I've heard a lot of different versions of this. Math meeting, I've even heard it called. So in this, you're going to see how you can use these boom cards with your students to set up a morning meeting scenario.
Yesterday was. Today is. Tomorrow will be.
You can see the audio feedback in here. You can see the visual
The month
feedback
is.
with this. And in this set, they're
The date
mostly
is.
utilizing the drag and drop feature, where students would be dragging and dropping the
The
answers
year
into
is.
the box. And although I suggest this
The
from
weather
group,
is.
you could totally have students complete this independently on their own and reinforce some of those
The
skills that you
temperature
can do
is.
in whole group.
It feels. The season is. Choose a level.
So I love the idea of having that in your classroom for your whole group class to do together. I have another one here just to showcase how I might use this for a more academic time of the day. So this I would use in a math lesson. We might have been just doing a lesson on patterns. I may have my students have patterns, have pattern blocks in front of them, and they are doing it hands-on while I have this up on the smartboard and we're completing it, and then inviting students to come up one at a time to answer the questions. So let's see how this would work. And this would be an example of a multiple choice set of task cards.
What comes next in the pattern? 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 What comes next in the pattern?
And just remember, all of that information that students are doing by getting all of those answers correct, like you just saw in that video, all of that is being logged in the database for you to be able to go back and check. So even if you say, hey, I might not use this with my whole class, when we get talking to more about the individualized ways you can use this with students, you can get all the data on what you just did in your lesson by looking back at what they've done. So my other option that I love about Boom Cards and see a great way for this to work in a classroom is as a station or center in a classroom. So I know in a lot of elementary classrooms, they run a system where they have a time of the day where students go throughout the classroom to different centers or stations. I also know as a self-contained special education teacher, I use stations or centers as time for my students to complete independent work and often would have different activities for them to do. Now, when I was in brick and mortar, I didn't know about Boom Cards. I just learned about it through the times where I had to learn how to be a virtual teacher teaching remotely. But if I ever would go back into the physical classroom, I would totally create an independent workstation or center in my room that was the Boom Card station. So what I love about this option is that's different from that whole group is that students can have differentiated decks assigned to them, meaning you can specifically pick what deck students are going to work on, which makes that instruction designed specifically for them. Now, you can choose to do two different things. You can choose to give them decks that you know they can complete or at a mastery level, or depending on if you have support in your classroom, say a paraprofessional that could assist a student if they get stuck, you can also give them instructional material if you want as well. Either way, it's going to collect data for you the entire time, so even if you're not right there with the student and they're doing the work independently, you're still going to get that data. So the other idea I love is assigning the same decks to all of your students if you're covering a certain skill. And I really feel like this in the bottom corner here where it says activities for the word big, this is kind of like a sight word activity. And you can actually see within this deck, and I'll show you a video of this shortly, that inside this deck there's actually 7 activities that students can complete. So I really think this is a great example of something that you could use in your classroom if you were basing off of literacy instruction, sight word instruction, and wanted those students to have multiple ways to work on a concept. Something like this could be really great. And again, I really think having a Boom Card station in your classroom that's a dedicated space in the room is another great idea. Now, you also could just have a cart of iPads in your classroom. I know some of us have access to that, or you have a classroom computer, and maybe that's where that station is housed. The other idea I love is having a section or a corner of the room that you have a desk, you have an iPad, you have a chair, and you have headphones, and that's where the students complete the Boom Card station at. I love when we have opportunities for students to have technology in the classroom, and I really think this is a great way to incorporate learning and technology seamlessly together. So this also is a great option when you don't have a lot of devices and maybe you only have 1 or 2, but you want to have a chance for students to have an opportunity to use it, because if students rotate through the centers, they eventually will get to the Boom Card station. So like I said, I wanted to show you inside this sight word activities that is a Boom Card set of cards and show you a few of the different types of activities that potentially could be done with Boom Cards and how it could work for a literacy station.
Click a sound to play and sort into the boxes above. Big, big, big. Big.
So for this, students need to
More.
listen to the auditory and
More.
then they get to drag and drop
Go.
the words and sort them
Go.
into words that sound
All.
like the word and ones
All.
that don't.
Help.
So this is for your
Help.
auditory
Big.
discrimination, which is a great thing for students to practice.
Big.
There's also some listening comprehension as
Big.
well.
Choose an activity or choose all done. Find the word.
In this activity, we're just looking for that basic sight word knowledge. Can you find and identify the word?
Choose an activity or choose all done. Find all the big items.
And then this is kind of applying the knowledge of that word. So understanding what the word big means.
Choose an activity or choose Type the word.
And another great feature of Boon, which we didn't talk about, was there actually is the ability for students to type their answers in. So if you want to work on typing skills, I think for sight words, it just adds another multi-sensory approach for your students' learning.
Choose an activity or choose all done.
All right, so now I want to show you a life skills type activity or something that your students may just think is super fun. Not everything that you have to do in that Boom Card station has to be academic based. Now, this is following directions if you look at this carefully. There's a pizza and there's a customer order, and you have to drag and drop the pieces onto the pizza that match the activity. I want you to watch though too, because we've seen a lot of the activities where all the answers are correct. I want you to also notice that at times their students will get the feedback if they get the answer wrong, so that it prompts them to fix their mistake. So with this, the student is to move the pieces onto the pizza that matches the customer order. And again, I feel like many students may see this as a fun activity, but it's also a functional one. Working on this is similar to taking a job skills type class. You might be making pizzas one day for a job, so why not learn how to do it in the classroom?
Whoops!
And there you can see that the mistake was made. You heard the auditory sound that happened there, and it gave the student the chance to fix the answer. And again, this one mostly utilizes that drag and drop feature that Boom has. All right, so then my last way that you can utilize Boom Cards in your classroom, and believe me, I'm sure there's others, but this one I really, really love. So using it for assessments, and when I say assessments, I can actually think of multiple ways that you could use Boom Cards as assessments in your classroom. The first thing I want to note though is that by using Boom Cards, you can save paper and time. Because not only are you not copying and laminating and cutting and stapling and collating and doing all that, it's all housed on Boom. So if it's there, you can assign it to all students at one time, and it's quick and fast and easy for you. The other way that I like using this is I also love the idea of taking this and using it as an exit ticket. So if every student has a one-on-one device, which I know many schools are moving to that platform, and having students have their own Chromebooks or tablets or iPads or something that they take with them throughout their day and have in the classroom, then why not use them as their exit ticket out the door? So if they are about to leave a lesson, and even if they're not actually leaving the classroom, you can have students complete a few questions in a set of a Boom Card deck that maybe even you create that goes with the content you just taught to check on their understanding. You could even do some check-in questions that say, do you feel confident in your answer with this? Do you feel like you understand what we talked about today? Is there anything else you need more help on? And you could even leave a type box if you wanted, just like we saw in that previous deck there where students were typing sight words. You can have them type in if they feel like they're doing okay with the content or if they're struggling a bit, and get that feedback. So the other great thing about this is it's going to grade everything for you, and you're going to get instant feedback for both the students when they complete the answers, and you as the teacher, you'll get that data and feedback from them. Audio can be included. Now you saw many of the decks so far have had audio support in them. Not every deck on Boom has audio in the supports. A lot of that is controlled by if the creator of the deck makes it, but if you as the teacher want audio included, you can absolutely do that. The one nice thing as well is that this can be completed anywhere. So you can have it done in your classroom, you can have it done at home if you want, and you could have it done in the library if you need a student to work in a quieter space. Another great way to think about this is that it works for all subject areas. So no matter what subject area you teach, you can make a Boom Card for it, and you can probably find one if you can't make it. I also love the idea of not just using this for checking for understanding, but using it for student placement, looking for that baseline data. So if we want to know where a student is at and what they've learned so far, we could give them a deck of Boom cards or even a set of multiple decks that cover a bunch of skills to see where they're at on those skills. I'm thinking of such as phonics or reading skills or literacy skills that you might use then to help decide how to group students that need extra help. And so if you give everybody in the class the same 5 decks of Boom cards that work on literacy skills, you can see which students are struggling and you can see how to group them in order to give that more intense instruction to students based on their scores on their Boom cards. So I wanted to show you 2 examples of cards that I might use in an assessment setting. So for example, this is a set of Boom cards that works on context clues. So you're going to hear the audio read to the students that will read the text on the page. And then students have to listen and comprehend what is being read to them and then select an answer that applies to it.
I cook food. I use ingredients and a knife. I work in a kitchen or a restaurant. Who am I?
I check your health. I use a stethoscope and medicine. I work at a hospital. Who am I? I write music and sing. I use different instruments. I work in a music studio. Who am I?
Whoops.
I write music and sing. I use different instruments. I teach you things. I use books and paper. I work in a school. Who am I? So as you can see here, there was many different aspects in this deck, but I love the idea of if you just did a class on community helpers and taught an entire lesson on it, you could throw this up into your students' Boom accounts for them to use, and you could see what information did they gain from that lesson. What did they understand? What do they not? And they can also get a gauge on how they're learning too, because as you saw, you get that video and audio support showing you if you got the answer right. Now, I did talk about how you might want to do some baseline data. You may want to get a good idea of just where your students are at with a lot of skills. It could be just one subject area, like all literacy skills or all math skills, or maybe you want a collective picture of what that student is able to do depending on their level of skill. So what I suggest you do is find something, or if you really want to be adventurous, create it yourself, but something like what you see on the screen here. This is one example of a Boom deck that I have created that goes in this basics bundle that has 13 different types of Boom cards that all work on basic skills. Counting, number identification, letter sounds, shape identification, colors, and much more. And what you're going to see here when I click play is that there's lots of ways to use the audio. The audio doesn't just have to read the directions to the student, but you're also going to see how a deck like this could be good to help you understand if students have a grasp or an understanding of initial letter sounds.
Pick what starts with T. Tent. Eagle. Nest. Pick what starts with Y. Yarn. Eagle. Nest. Pick what starts with X. Watermelon. X-ray. Zebra. Pick what starts with X. Pick what starts with W. Watermelon. Dog. House.
So what I think is great about utilizing that in an assessment is all of your students can take that and you can see what letter sounds they're still struggling with to know what you need to go back and reteach. Also, if you know you have a group of students that are just struggling with certain letter sounds, group them up together during your guided reading or station times and give them that extra practice that they need. And now I've got a bonus tip for you. Guess what? If you're not really into doing the tech, if you're not really into having the stations or the one-to-one devices in your classroom yet, and it's okay, you can actually print Boom cards. So even if you don't like the idea of using them on an iPad or a computer, you can still print Boom cards just like you would any other printable material or task card and use them in your classroom. All you need to do is go and use the print feature on there, which I'm going to show you a video on how to get there and do that. And you can have these printed, laminated, and then store them in your classroom however you would like. I often have my students complete the task cards with dry erase markers, clips such as clothespins, or maybe on a cookie sheet with some magnets. And then I also love that you can do this, and maybe if you want to just reinforce the skills, so maybe you still do have that iPad station for Boom cards, but maybe you have a hands-on station with Boom cards as well and you use the printable version. The other idea I love is that those great iris boxes, can you see them behind me with that create word on top of them? They are great for storing those printable Boom cards and task cards. And I also love using the printable versions because you can have them complete with partners and they can kind of check each other's work. So maybe if students circle them with dry erase markers, they can pass them to their friend and their friend can check their answer. And that will add to some cooperative learning, which can be great to use in your classroom as well. So what I have here is a little quick tutorial that's going to go onto the Boom website and show you how to print the materials. And then I'm also going to show you some examples of those cards so you can see what they look like on a page. So first you're going to want to log into your account and you're going to want to make sure it's your teacher account. You're going to want to go to the library tab and then you're going to want to select the deck that you want. You're going to see a blue button next to that deck. Give me a second while I find the deck I wanted. Click on that action button and you're going to see an option to print. Click on print and it's going to take a few seconds. It's preparing the cards and kind of setting them up onto sheets appropriately so that it can print and kind of almost converting them to be printable. And as you can see here, here is a deck of cards that are ready to be printed and you have some options of how you want them to be printed. So you can print certain numbers on a row. So as you can see, this is 2 to a page, which is probably close to that standard task card size. Then you can do 2 on a page, and you can see you get 6 on a page with this, so they're a little bit smaller. And then the last one I'm going to show you, I actually love it as a worksheet. So I could see myself giving this to one of my students as a worksheet that they would just put their name on the top because you can see many task cards, up to 12 can fit onto that page. So I love the printing idea as well because if you don't want to do all the tech in your classroom, you can just totally convert over and do the printable part of it as well. All right, well, I want to thank you so much for coming today, but I have a few things I want to offer you as well. So as a part of the E2E conference, I am going to be giving out a coupon code to all of you that have watched this presentation, which will give you 25% off anything in my web store, including all Boom decks that I have currently. I also want to give you an opportunity to sign up for my free resource library. And when you do that, you're also signing up for my newsletter where you get to subscribe to getting monthly freebies, and you also will get some free Boom decks as well. On the yellow section there, you're going to see it says my blog post that you can check out all about Boom cards. So I've written several blog posts about using technology in the classroom and how to make it work, but I specifically wrote one on Boom cards and how you can start using them right away. So I highly suggest you check that out. And the last thing I have for you is an exclusive presentation freebie that I'm only giving out to all of you. I want you to click the link on the PDF below that's going to have links to the resources first that you got to see in this video, but also I'm going to give you an exclusive freebie that is a set of Boom cards that you can use right away. Now, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to talk with you more about how you can take technology and integrate it into your classroom and doing that with Boom cards. I would love to connect with you. There's multiple ways you can find me around. You can find me on my website, which is www.teachloveautism.com. You can also find me on Pinterest at Teach Love Autism. You can find me on Teachers Pay Teachers at Teach Love Autism. You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Teach Love Autism. And you can find me on Facebook at both my page, Teach Love Autism, and my group, Teach Love Autism community. So I hope that you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you reach out. I would love to hear feedback from you on how this is going for you and if you decided to use Boom Cards in your classroom. If you have any questions or want to know more about this, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I thank you guys so much for coming.